Hi, everybody. I'm Indy, and that's Jay. And I was muted. Radagast and Gamer, what's up? Radagast, I got one of those 17 badges, too. See that badge in the chat?
What? Oh, that's for going to TwitchCon?
Yeah, TwitchCon badge.
I could just, buy that, I suppose, or,
You can't buy that badge.
I could. Everything's got a price, Andy.
I don't know where you buy it from.
You'd have to buy somebody's. I could theoretically
buy someone's
use
account
it as a, use the art as a badge for the stream and give it to myself.
But then it would look different.
Yeah, I know. Of course. And the phone rings. All right, so.
And Netflix.
Andy,
yeah.
Why don't you go ahead and jump in? I've only got 2 articles up for news today, but they're actually a pretty big deal in and of themselves.
First one, Fortnite on Android, but it's not going to use Google Play.
It's not going to use anything.
It's going to be
Google,
its own.
Amazon.
You're going to download it directly from the site, right?
Yep. Download it directly from Epic's page.
Survive.io. I wonder how. I mean, I think they're big enough they can just do that. They
are. I mean, that's the reality. There's one, because of the way Android is set up. You don't necessarily have to get things through Google or Amazon or any of the other 2 or 3 dozen sites that are out there. But they've got enough following now with Fortnite that they can afford to say, look, if you want the game, you come to our site and get it.
Sure, you could use a controller. I have a couple different kinds of controllers for my mobile devices. Where are they? I have one for my iPad. It's great for people who aren't able to play it on a traditional console, though. Exposure is great. They make a lot of money. $2 million a month. Isn't that what the income was from the Apple?
$2 million a month, yeah, from iOS, which means, I did the math in an article that I wrote on LinkedIn. They are giving $18 million a month to Apple.
Wow.
And they're like, we don't want to do that to Google Play. We're just going to do it ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have to. That's the catch. And then, right on the tail of that, Bethesda says, oh yeah, and Fallout 76 won't be on Steam.
I feel like that's risky,
but again, I don't know. Fallout is one of those franchises that I almost hesitate to call Fallout a mass market game, because it has got a very passionate following, even though every time they announce a new version of it, that following announces that it's the end of the world and it's going to be horrible, and everything is dead to them. But people that want to play a Fallout game know where to get it.
Gonna have major fallout from that decision.
Oh my god, yes. So I mean, it's risky, but it's not like they're the only ones who have done this and have tried this.
Right.
It's like EA games aren't on Steam. Ubi has some games on Steam. There are a lot of places that, and a lot of games that just simply don't need it. And so I think it's, interesting. I think it's good. I think it's timely. If you rewind about a month when, Tim Sweeney said, we're not going to take 30% from the Unreal Asset Store anymore. We're only going to take 12, and we're going to give the creators 88%. Now that makes a whole lot more sense, because they can't come out and say, well,
we don't want to do this.
Is too much, and yet they're the ones taking 30%. So, I think that kind of fits into that whole, strategy dialogue that they have, that they've been creating anyway, going for. And Tim said this last year, his keynote at Gamescom, at DevCom last year, he was talking about how, it was BS that these stores take 30%, when, the analogy he drew was MasterCard and Visa and the credit cards they take 2 or 3% for basically handling a transaction. Now, you can argue that Apple and Google Play and Steam do more than just handle a transaction. There is discoverability built in, but when you've got a game like, Fortnite or a game like Fallout 76, how much is that discoverability actually worth to them?
Mm-hmm. It'll be interesting to like see how it ends up, just as a data point. So
I am hoping that they then turn around and Epic, being them, turns around and opens up a platform for developers to sell other games through, PC or Android.
That would
because
be
they
epic.
could.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean they could, because they've got like I said, they've got that footprint. We talked about this last week. There's a direct correlation between when Steam user numbers started falling and when Fortnite numbers started exploding.
But imagine that. Imagine the discoverability of that. Let's say they launch 5 other games on the same platform as Fortnite. So they have all of those eyes that log into Fortnite and see all of these other games. Oh, brilliant. That's probably going to happen.
I mean, you've already seen it to an extent with Activision. They've started using the Blizzard launcher, which used to be strictly Blizzard games, and now it's Blizzard games and Destiny. So they've started kind of creeping in that, because you can't buy Blizzard games on Steam.
Right.
So
I will say, as an end user, that annoyed me a little, because I got Destiny in the Humble Bundle, and then thought I would try it for like an hour, and then had to go download the Blizzard launcher just for that, and then when I was done with Destiny, had to like uninstall all that crap later. But it was obnoxious for me as an individual. But I totally understand why they did that.
I understand. What annoyed me about it was the fact that I like my Blizzard launcher being just my Blizzard launcher. I didn't want that other stuff in there. But I mean, that brings up a good question then. So, you're not a Hearthstone player?
I've played Hearthstone in the past, but not really very much anymore. Yeah.
No, I mean, I was just curious.
I don't have time really to do things like that. Basically, the time that I get to a lot to playing games is more like I want to experiment with as many different games as I can, and I don't get to like delve too deeply into anything. Like I don't have time to play like grind up a ladder and try to like be the best, or unlock a bunch of stuff. I just most of my days I'm going to bed at 3, and that's when I stop working. So yeah.
3 in the afternoon's early to go to bed, man.
That's when I'm getting up,
Yeah, I wish. A nice little siesta right in the afternoon.
Now comes the fun part of the game. I get to play Slay the Spire. Yay!
So are you playing with a controller, or are you playing with a mouse and keyboard?
Playing with a mouse and keyboard. You can play with a controller?
You can, although it's still like a feature that might have some issues, and there's so many different controllers that we're just still trying to improve that. So.
I've been wondering, as I started, playing it on the Android tablet, how well that worked. I don't even have a controller set up for the Android tablet yet, but it was. I've been wondering if I could do that, but.
How are you playing games on Steam Link if you don't have that set up?
Because it's a touch. I mean, the Nexus screen acts as a mouse, but it's just touchscreen.
It works surprisingly well. Yeah, I mean, so when we sat down and kind of designed this game, we thought about maybe going to mobile in the future, and so we wanted to make it so that you could basically just play with your finger. So.
The only problem is, it's like I was telling Anthony, you can't like mouse hover over a elixir or you can tap an elixir and tell you what it is, but you can't when you get to a treasure chest, you have to pick one of the 3 relics. You can't like hover over it to see what it is if you tap it, you select it. So you're kind of like rolling the dice on that one. And then it's really hard to throw potions at enemies.
We have a list of like things that we want to do to enhance that, because Steam Link coming out kind of just was a huge surprise to us, right? So
well, and the rest of the industry.
Yeah. So we want to make so for example, for a mobile interface, we would have it where the potions are bigger, the slots so that you can click them easier, and then when those relics come up like in a boss chest, you choose it would have like little descriptions probably hovering by the relics. You could actually have that information. So we have like things planned to address that stuff, but they're somewhere in a giant list of tasks that are things to do. So at some point,
well, you need to get to it, because it's really impairing my ability to play on an obscure device through a very new medium off of a PC. It's we need to get that fixed like ASAP. So for those that don't know, tell us how you guys got here, because you have the story that every single one of us at some point in time has started, of in college, sitting around going, hey, you know what, we should make a game and start a game company. I mean, everybody has that. Everybody who's in the industry, or even fans of the industry, at some point has had that thought. So you all did it. So I mean, walk us through it. Tell us how you got here.
Sure. So
first off, thank you, Mortal Nikki, for the host. Okay, go ahead. You're done. Go on.
That was beautiful timing. So Casey and I met up in college. There were a bunch of different game clubs, and we thought, hey, we both like games and we're doing computer science. Why don't we try to make some just as like a hobbyist thing? So we made a Flash game that I think is actually still out there, that somebody took and put it on their website, and a little iPhone game. And they were, I would not say that they were good games, but they were games. They had problems, we'll say, but it was a really great learning experience. We learned a ton. We learned a lot about the importance of like properly doing playtesting. And then we thought, okay, well, we got our degrees. We thought, okay, that was fun, and we actually went out into the software industry for a bit. And got experience in the software industry, made a lot of money. And then once we had done that, we met up again, and we were like, hey, that was fun. Why don't we do that, except do it right this time?
I like the whole part of we did this and made a lot of money. That's
yes. So when we left our job, saved up enough to where we could not work for a while. So
nice.
we didn't have to like struggle to eat, which is important as it turns
That's
out.
extremely important.
Yeah.
Yes.
So and it helps that my wife is also a software engineer, so is and a better programmer than I am, so it was fine. But anyway, so we left, and then we started working on Slay the Spire, and we just got really serious into it. We're working on it full time, and then it just blew up into a huge success, more than we ever expected it to be. So,
and that's key, because that was one of my questions. It's like, it took you guys 2.5 years to, get to this point.
mm-hmm.
What did you do in the meantime? Were you on a ramen diet for 2 years, or, so it's good to know. And I think it's one of those things that a lot of developers kind of gloss over. It's like, you've got to have something going on, either money you've saved up, or, a wife or a husband who's bringing in money and will also put up with you not having a real job for 2 years. I mean, I know that. I'm on my second startup. I haven't had a real job in 10 years, and I have a wonderful wife that just kind of like grins and rolls her eyes and goes, all right, here we go again, but that's an important part of this. I mean, you can't just, walk into your boss's office one day and throw up a middle finger and then start you a game company. There's more that goes into it.
Yeah, and part of it is we're both like really frugal people. So I mean, and it was, we had thought a lot about it. It wasn't just like a spontaneous decision. It was very much like, okay, I think, we can last for, I can last for like this long, and like this is, a good amount of time, and here's some like, there was some math done, so you don't just want to be like, I'm gonna do it and then just have no plan. I think that that's a terrible way to go about it. Like a lot of thought was put into that initial step.
So it wasn't a situation where you're like, okay, so we're either going to do a shooter or a roguelike drafting card game, or so I mean, we know that you're a huge fan of Netrunner, and you've played that a lot. How did that factor into what you've done with the game, and was this always the design that you and Casey had in mind, or how has it evolved over the last 2-3 years?
So it has evolved a lot, but the core experience of being a roguelike deck building game was kind of like in my initial design doc that I made. So in our spare time, Casey and I had just like, we are, excuse me, we like game design. So we had like come up with different ideas. I think Casey had actually made a few prototypes and things while he was working at the big software company. But yeah, I had thought that a roguelike and a card game would be a good fit together, just mechanically. Like, okay, it's a genre mashup, but why is that a good mashup? And it's because, to me, my favorite part of card games is the deck building.
Yeah.
So like in particular, I've played Magic since I was a little kid, Magic the Gathering, and my favorite part in Magic is doing drafts, where everyone sits down at a table and you draft a new deck, and that to me is like Magic at its best. And a roguelike gives you an excuse to constantly build a new deck, whereas like in a constructed game like Hearthstone, you're going to build like the best meta deck, and you're going to go grind a bunch of games with it. So yeah, that like experience is always there, and it evolved a ton. I mean, like the initial prototype we have, I think we still have some video of it, but it's like there's no map, you can't choose where to go, you just go to the next floor instantly, and it like randomly picks a thing. There's no like intents or anything like that, so there was a lot different.
I love the deck building aspect of it as well, but I am absolutely horrible at drafting, because I get like halfway through it and then go, I probably shouldn't have been like picking the cards that I like the best. I probably should have had a bit of strategy in here along the line somewhere. And that's what, even playing Slay the Spire, I have the same issues. I get like halfway through it and went, oh, wait, you know what? Probably should have been working on something along the lines of an exhaust deck or something.
I never think that deep. My problem is I will play a card and then afterwards go, dang it, I should have played that last. Or dang it, I'll play a card last. And I'm like, I just did it. I'm like, oh, and then I did this. Why did I play this? Because it wears off and I haven't even done anything.
So that happens a lot, and I think that actually it's a good thing, because we present all of the information, we give you the opportunity to do that. And what I say by that is, if it was hidden and you like didn't know what the enemy was going to do, you might not do that. And then when bad things happen to you as a result, you wouldn't go, oh, I screwed up. You'd go, oh, this is just RNG bullshit, And so we're giving you an opportunity to learn. And so that's actually really important for why it works, I think. So,
right.
Yeah, I mean, I think I saw this in another interview you did, or maybe it was just someone's review and commentary on the game. It's like you have combinations that are possible in the game that are just like ridiculously overpowered. I play the hidden character a whole lot, which always confuses me because it's not hidden. It's, that's the name of the,
The silent, or
yes, that one. That's what I meant. That's the silent. Because I've always loved poison decks. When I first started playing Magic back when I was in college, I showed up to a local tournament with a poison deck, and people were like, "What do you? That's not anywhere." It was nowhere near a meta game. I didn't win the tournament, but actually ranked pretty high because no one was expecting it, and you can go in and you can, lay the damage and layer the poison on an enemy, and then you throw catalyst down, which doubles it, and then you throw, the corpus explosion, and you can just create these ridiculous combos. But you got to get lucky and get the cards, and at the end of the run, you're done. You can't go back. You're not saving that deck for the next run. You go and you start all over from scratch. So that's one of the things that I think is it's really cool about the game, is you can actually, with the right amount of luck and strategy, create some ridiculous deck combinations that make it fun and give you that like all powerful feeling.
Yeah, and basically that's possible because it's a single player game. Because I don't have to worry about, oh, if I make this card do this crazy shenanigan with this other card, then it's going to be unfair and people will, it'll dominate a meta, and then everyone will have to deal with playing against it. No, the only thing that's going to happen is that the player's going to feel really great while they're playing with that. And so that's why, by being a single player experience, we're differentiating ourselves from like all of the other games that are trying to be on Hearthstone's playing field, right? So I think that's like key, and it's why it's why we've had requests like, oh, why don't you guys have multiplayer PvP in the game? And in addition to being like a ton of work, like it's yeah, and like I can't just press the multiplayer button. It would also kind of just go against like the core design, so it wouldn't actually be a good experience. So
but I mean, and that's a very valid point. You don't necessarily have to worry about, is it fair?
Mm-hmm.
Because the reality is, it may be completely unfair to the monsters in the Spire, but come next time around, next time you start up a game, you're not going to have that option. It's not like you're creating something that is so powerful that it's going to make the game unfun, from there on out. So while we're in this, neck of the woods in the conversation, I know you tapped into a lot of the contacts and a lot of the folks that you knew, from your Netrunner days in terms of balancing.
Oh yeah, sorry.
How on earth? I mean, how did the process go from, who comes up with the cards? How are they tested? How are they balanced? Walk us through the process on that, because with the number of cards you all have, this is not an easy process.
Yeah, and so part of that is, I knew from my card game background, because every card game I've played has balance issues. Like if you've played Magic at any point, there are overpowered things, there are garbage unplayable cards, and I knew that just Casey and I were not going to be able to do an adequate job of balancing everything. And so we did a couple things. One is, I'm just friends with a lot of the good, like high-level Netrunner players. So for example, the back-to-back Netrunner world champion, he's good friends with me, and so I was able to just say, hey, and reach out to him and say, hey, why don't you come play test this game I'm working on? And then he could provide good feedback. And so what we did is we set up an internal Slack that has different channels for everything, and one of which is a playtester channel. And then we invite people in to be internal playtesters. They playtest in there, and then if they provide any feedback, we have a bot that like collects all of that feedback, so they could be playing at when I'm asleep, and then I can come back and my bot will have collected all the feedback, and
That's
I can
cool.
look at it.
That's really cool.
And then the other thing we did is another that would, whenever we would do a push to our master branch, getting into coding a little there, but whenever we would basically tag a release build, not an actual release build at the time, but a build that was good enough for the playtesters, a bot would automatically push out a build into that channel, and our playtesters could immediately download the newest build.
Wow.
So basically our playtesters constantly had access to new builds, and we were pushing out like new builds every day. So this did a couple things. One, it meant that their feedback was really up to date. And two, it kept them really motivated to keep playing. Because even when our game doesn't have a lot of content, right, the build they play on Monday is different than the build they play on Tuesday, and then your friends who might, you know, like if I'm just like pushing out a game and I'm like, hey guys, a lot of times maybe they just play it for an hour or two, give some feedback, be done with it. But instead, I was leveraging these my friends and other people and keeping them interested so that they can keep providing valuable feedback. And so I think that was actually really, really important. And that's even before getting into the metric stuff, so which I can also go into. But this basically we leveraged Slack and used it to our advantage in a big way with bots.
So I mean, the metrics, you know, that's one of the other things I wanted to, you know, catch on. So obviously, with the computer science and the, you know, general programming background that you and Casey both had,
Mm-hmm.
you're able to go in and create these tools. You know,
Yeah.
So aside from, you know, the feedback tool, you know, and I know from you can go in and you can look at all this data on all these games that were played by all these users and see, you know, the relics that they got and the cards that they chose and all that kind of good stuff. Was that part of, you know, is that tool part of the one that you're using for balancing? And if not, you know, what other tools are you using or have you all created in-house to, you know, to help manage all this?
Sure. So basically, it's two things. So one, it's the bot that collects feedback, and so and that's one. It was in our internal playtester Slack, and then it's also in our official Discord now. So any person who's playing the game can provide feedback with the feedback bot in our Discord channel, and we use that. You know, that's where people file bugs and suggestions and all kinds of stuff, and it, you know, it gets overwhelmed with a lot of junk too, but you know, you can also filter through it and try to find the good stuff. But so that's one thing, that's that. And then the other thing is from this early stage, so after we created like feedback bot stuff, we also, you know, implemented our internal metrics. So whenever anyone would play the game, it would submit their metric data to our metric server, and then we would analyze it with graphs and charts and things and look, okay, this enemy is doing this much damage on average, this card's being picked this percentage of the time, stuff like that. And that's because I'm a pretty data oriented person, and I wanted to look at things in a pretty analytical way, or at least, you know, try. And obviously there's flaws, and I'm not a statistician, but we do our best trying to use that as not like the final word, but as a tool in our toolbox. So just using that data as another thing we can look at, like, okay, I made this change, how did it impact the data, right? Like, okay, this card shot up a lot in use or win percentage, things like that. And so we implemented that early on because we might have a player who's a play tester and they're providing good feedback. You know, maybe they'll say like one thing a day, but maybe they're playing for hours and hours of time and they're only providing one piece of feedback, but it's much more valuable to still get all of that data from the games that they're playing. And maybe, especially at that personalized level, I could go in and look and see, okay, you know, here's why they said this feedback. I can actually look at their games and see like the cards they picked and what happened. And so even when we didn't have a huge sample size like we do now with our like entire player base, it was still incredibly useful, like help us just narrow down and get a good look at what our playtesters were experiencing. And then the ultimate, like how we ultimately balance is a combination of playtester feedback, our metrics, and then our experience. Because I played a ton of our game. You know, a lot of it is just, you know, a lot of it is my personal feel and opinions on just playing it so much and becoming an expert on it, basically. But all three of those things combine, and you can't trust any one of them too much. They're just all, the way to think about it is they're all useful tools, and you know, you have to treat it like a tool and realize that it has limits, but you can try to apply it in a way that makes sense. So
yeah, because when you're playing your own game, your head is so inside of it. It's really very hard to like know. You can be playing that. Is this even fun? I don't even know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's one of the things. With the games we made in college, where so we made like a little shoot 'em up flash game,
Mm-hmm.
And we had play tested it so much individually that I was like, man, this game is way too easy. You know, like this game is like for babies. And then the game was actually insanely difficult. And like no one, it was way too difficult. Especially for the Flash game market, so, which was an issue. But you know, the people who liked that level of difficulty were like, man, this is like one of the best Flash games ever. But you know, that's a very small number of people. So
that's the niche, and you know, the niche is wonderful sometimes, but it also doesn't generally pay all the bills.
yeah.
All right, let's jump into, before we get too far into anything else, I did, you know, being the wonderful host that I am, just now remember to launch our giveaway. So Anthony has been kind enough to give us 2 keys to the game. And so we type !raffle. You'll get entered in the raffle. We'll do one of the giveaways here in about 15-20 minutes, and we'll do another one at the end, or hell, we may just do them both at once, either one or the other. Type !raffle to get in. We've still got our giveaway as well for the guide to publishing, basically, that's below, with the dude being all excited in his blue suit. And I can tell you now that the console version of that is done too. So if you win that one, you know, you can pick between the PC, the mobile, or the console version, whichever one you want. Yeah, that actually came together all pretty quick. I'm very, very happy about it. But yeah, that's a Gleam competition. So just click there and go to it and do all that. All right, so questions. Let's see here. Let me scroll way back up. And Radagast asked, you know, is there a mobile version on the horizon?
We do plan on porting it to mobile. Yes. So, yeah.
Short answer, yes.
Yeah.
All right. Hold on, I gotta flip through this. Indy's much better at this than me, but he's playing the game right now.
I can do it. Here, let's the game can pause.
All right, so Gamer Husband wants to know, back in your Magic days, what color deck did you favor? Even though, you know, he's over in the UK and he spelled favor wrong.
Blue and black was the answer.
Yeah, I usually favor black. I like to tell my opponents no, they can't have fun. But
yeah. Hated blue decks. God, blue decks.
Basically not red and, you know, not green. So
not red and not green. He also says, I'm glad you used libgdx and not Unity. Do you think that helped your game success, as Unity is so buggy?
Man, so it's mixed. There were pros and cons to what we did. And there's still some cons affecting it today that I can go into, but you know, there were certainly pros in that Unity takes a cut, right? So I had to give a cut of everything.
Give him a cut.
But there were times where, so part of why we did libgdx is Casey was comfortable with it and it could handle Linux, Mac, and Windows. And we definitely wanted it to be out on all platforms easily. And we would have had to like learn Unity from the ground up. And because we come from a software background, we both like that libgdx is just all about. I'm not like clicking and dragging stuff and dealing with a GUI. Now, obviously, a lot of people really like working with a GUI, but it kind of just slows me down, and we both like to like work at a really breakneck fast pace. So, but there are problems. So, for example, if we ran into an issue like with something with the engine, very few people are using libgdx. So what that means is if I go and I Google that problem, I might not find an answer.
Yeah.
Or maybe I find an answer and like one person replied. Whereas Unity has a ton of people and a huge community, right? So if you run into an issue with Unity, you are going to go and you're going to find people who can help you out. So like that's a big advantage that we didn't have access to. Unity also probably would have handled some of the resolution stuff and things like that better. So I can't say whether libgdx was better or worse. I know a lot of people like that. Hey, it's not different, and so that's pretty cool. But it's worked for us.
So, Gamer Husbands, has a question that I wanted to get to anyway. The Chinese market. How did, and we'll talk about localization, next, but how did the launch in China? I mean, obviously it affected everything because you got a huge amount of sales, but is that something you expected? What did you do? What kind of advice do you have for other studios who want to have, to at least get to that market and, test everything out?
So we did not expect to be as in China. I've known that like in Asia in general, card games are big. I mean, they're bigger than they are here, right? So like I went on vacation to Japan once, and I noticed that in arcades over there, they have like the really popular game that actually uses cards that you buy like booster packs for, and you like interface it with the arcade machine, like, and it's really, really popular. So card games are big over in Asia, and I think that was I suspected that, but I didn't know the degree it was going to happen. And how it started was basically we launched the game, and a little shortly after launch, like I don't remember exactly how many weeks, but a few weeks after launch, a big Chinese streamer started playing the game, and he put out a video where he played the game, and everything was in English still. We had no localization at the time, but he just like translated it, and that video blew up. It got like over 500,000 views, and then all of a sudden, like overnight, the majority of our player base was Chinese, and we were initially we were thinking, because like our plan was, we'd go into early access, we'd do like the early access thing, and then eventually we'd like pay a localization company to like localize it. That's how we do it. But we were like, we need to localize like yesterday. And so we immediately like reach out, found a localization company, and they did like localization. But the thing is, because we're doing weekly updates, the localization gets out of date so quickly that it doesn't really work. So we so instead, that's when we started doing this community thing, where we set it up where we would do community-based translations, and we have it in our Discord server. We have all these different channels, and anyone can join in and start translating, and that's worked really, really well for us because we have such a good dedicated community. And because we're releasing constant updates, they're motivated, right? Because especially when we like totally rework a card, you don't want your language to say like the old version of the card. So
right.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of took off from there. But then once we did localize, obviously a big deal, especially for Chinese. So but yeah, it's it really has kind of been a huge hit in China. And I like, card games are bigger in Asia and in China specifically, but I don't know why our game specifically has appealed to China more than like another game. That I actually don't know. I think there was that initial success, and then we've been really supportive of China. I think that's been a big part of it.
Yeah.
Well,
thanks, Dev Dan. That's awesome. Dev Dan says, thanks for streaming your channel. IGB inspires me to start my own Twitch channel for German game designers. That's awesome.
Awesome.
Inspiration.
Awesome. So how many copies did you sell in China, or have you sold in China?
Oh, a lot.
We're talking like significant six figures.
So China, I can't say, right, but like China is our biggest individual market, even still. Like it's about even with the, but for a while it was like over 50% of our player base was Chinese for a good while. So
and that's a market that, and no, I didn't mean to tell you to give us the exact sales figures down to the dollar. That is a market that so many people and so many developers don't think about, because one, it is a challenge. When we hear about companies taking their games to China, they're generally talking about taking the mobile versions to China, which is a endeavor in and of itself that's beyond anything that you might think it would be to get actual traction for a mobile game in China. But with Steam, it pretty much allows you to, open it up to the Chinese market because you didn't do anything special, to release it there. You just, had it available, right?
Exactly, yeah. And so in that way, we're really fortunate. But I think part of it, and like maybe the art style, kind of appeals more in China as well. And then a lot of it's just being really, really supportive. So like, we get tech support emails all the time, and I deal with them. So like, I get emails all these. I use Google Translate, and I try my best to answer and help them out, and like might go back and forth a little bit, but I try. So and I think that is like noticeable, right? So, and we have some great people, some like super fans that are Chinese and like work with us on the translations, and they've given us a lot of feedback. So like they'll be like, hey, the Chinese players are saying this, and like we'll take that into account. So
we will fix that immediately. What's up? And you touched on something else that is the beauty of a small company. It's not like you and Casey get to sit in your nice plush office and let the rest of the people on the team deal with stuff. If you if there's a bug or you send feedback in, it's actually a highly probable that Anthony and Casey are the ones reading this stuff.
Yep.
So don't be a dick when you do it. That's one of the main things. But you have to juggle all of these different aspects of running a company when you don't have much. I mean, that's how I learned. I graduated college 20 years ago, and I had taken one business class, and I got a C in it. And so you learn everything on the job. Which is part of the reason why we do this channel in the first place. It's so you hopefully imparting some knowledge to folks before they go out and completely and utterly fail because they didn't know this stuff. We're trying to help it along there. So what challenges have you seen, because you are self-publishing?
Mm-hmm.
What challenges have you seen? What would you do different? What would you highly recommend for other developers to do early on? How's that process been for y'all?
So that's actually interesting because I've never had a publisher. I'm not 100% sure what we've had to do differently as a result of not having one. And so what I mean by that is my knowledge of publishers here is like, I've seen GDC talks, on the topic, and we actually reached out to publishers and tried to get a publisher initially. And I can go into that more too. But
yes, we want to go into that. You don't have to name the ones that
this
opportunity. But
yes, I'm not. We actually reached out to, but yeah, and anyway, we'll get into that. But yeah, so basically, our thought was, we had money, so we didn't need money, and our thought was, okay, we're not marketers. We really want a publisher to deal with. Okay, like how are we gonna do the trailer right? How are we gonna do marketing? It's like that's not a thing we're good at. And so that was the thing that we were hoping a publisher would, that we had to kind of do ourselves. And so that's what I would say is the thing that we had to try to solve. And so I did like the kind of standard advice where we sent out customized emails to different outlets and stuff like that at all the various times you're supposed to, and got literally zero traction with any of that. But and we tried all these things. Like I say that there's like a kind of traditional marketing advice thing, where it's like how you handle trailers, email, like your social media, stuff like that. And I don't think we actually handled that like super well. Like we didn't have like a dev blog that was getting a lot of hits. Our social media was fine, but it wasn't getting big numbers when we launched or anything. So I wouldn't say that we have a lot to. So I would say in that regard, I don't have a lot to teach people because I didn't do that part very well, if that makes sense. Like, you know, I didn't send out a great thing to like Kotaku and get a response, right? Kotaku wrote about us after we were successful because you know, yeah,
that's not uncommon.
yeah. So but yeah, so it, everything to do with like that aspect of marketing, that was the hard part. There was marketing's, you know, it's complex. There's like a lot that goes into it. You know, there's not just like advertising and that. There's also just like the composition of your game and things like that. And that I think we did really good on. But yeah, it was that outreach and how to get eyeballs. That was the hard part. And it's worked, but it's worked in ways that have more to do with other things than I think even a publisher would have helped with. If that makes sense.
So basically, so many people liked the game, and people saw it, and then they liked it, and that's what happened. It didn't really have anything to do with
right. Yeah. So like it didn't have
putting out press releases. That's the dream right there. Everyone wants to happen. Yeah.
So there's a couple things. So in development, I was, how are we gonna sell this game, right? And we thought, okay, we need to make our game so that it works as well as possible for streamers and YouTubers, because that's how this is gonna work. Right. And also that's how most people find games in the age. Like honestly, if you're not making a game that can take advantage of streamers and YouTubers in the current market and you're not AAA, you are having a really tough time for yourself. So we tried to do
what were the specific kind of things that you did to make it appeal to broadcasters?
Sure. So for example, a big part of it is that all of the information and everyone can look at it at any time, right? And it's presented pretty well. So like if you jump in and you can actually see, okay, like for example, that moment where you saw how you messed up when you were playing, right?
Right.
All the watchers can see the streamer screw up and think, oh, you know, and they have that moment, oh, I could do better than them. So for example, that happens with Northern Lion a lot. He's a one.
Yeah.
Guy. And so a lot of people say, hey, I watched Northern and I thought I could do better, so I decided to buy it. Stuff like that. And then there's
that's funny.
Like
that's a good angle.
That a lot.
Really.
Yeah. And then there's just a lot of little things. A lot of it is the replayability and the variability help a lot because like if you think about how YouTubers are often making like thumbnails and stuff, you know, what makes for an interesting thumbnail. You can be like, oh, I have a Corruption Dead Branch run, and they can be like, oh, sick combo, and you know that'll be like their thumbnail, and that's like good content for them, right? So we have a lot of advantages for streamers, and that kind of works well. And then the big thing is that we were thinking, okay, if I can get like a big Hearthstone streamer to just play the game, that would be good because he'd be streaming like to an audience that's receptive to it. And because we're single player, it's not like they're picking up a new lifestyle game. Hearthstone is, I would call it like a lifestyle game. So it's a game that like you play it, you like really dedicate yourself to it. And you know, if we were like another multiplayer card game, that's another lifestyle game. You know, you're not playing Hearthstone like and a competitor to Hearthstone because you don't have time to like. You're
not like buying card packs and stuff.
Yeah, you're not getting the whole card both sets. But for us, you know, it's a great thing to play. Like, I'm a little bored of, you know, grinding up the ladder right now. I can play this, get like a different card experience for just a little bit of bite-sized time. That's the right length, and then go back to Hearthstone. So that was like our hope, and then we actually did get, you know, a lot of big Hearthstone streamers that stream our game because the kind of game that appeals to them, they streamed it, and they streamed it to an audience receptive to it because that's the kind of game that they like, right? It's a card game. So
I just want to show you right here. I'm right where I can rest, and I have 1 hit point left.
I like your chances. They're good.
You should do Smith one of your cards. Don't rest.
Get out of here.
Suck it up and go for it. So, out of curiosity, how many publishers did you pitch this to?
So I want to say we pitched. Oh, man, what was I think it wasn't that many. It was like, I think it was like noteworthy ones. So what we did is we did research. Like everything we do with like research and a lot of forethought. So we did research and we're like, okay, what publishers do we actually like in terms of like, it looks like they've actually provided value to past games that they've launched. We compiled like a list, did some like research on them, and then sent out some customized emails to each one. And then we thought we had a good tag. We thought we were, because we also didn't need money besides like, whatever money would be spent on marketing and things like that. We were like, we don't actually need like a loan of any kind. We don't need money. We have money. Like, like let's work together. Let's make this work. And I'm really glad that they all said no. But
yeah.
In hindsight, but I mean, that's a key part of all of this is when you go in and you're like, we don't need funding. That can actually be a double-edged sword, because there's a segment of publisher who, they want to make sure that they have some sort of investment in it, and it's almost, detrimental to their mindset that you don't need their money, because they are, for years they've been getting by, and their whole business model is predicated on, we're giving you money, so you need to do what we want you to do. And and this isn't all publishers, and we track, I think we've got, our PC thing has like 400 and plus PC publishers that are out there. So, obviously this doesn't, factor into all of them, but, it's not exactly easy to go in and say, okay, we want to co-publish this with you. We don't necessarily have to have, 100,000, 200,000, $500,000, $1 million in funding. Let's talk this out. That's what I want people to realize. That's not exactly an easy prospect all the time. That can cause its own issues, with your publisher. So hold on. Let me do this raffle real quick.
Raffle.
So my husband, we'll get off my case here. So I'm going to give one away, and then we're going to reset it and we'll do another one. So, type !raffle to get in like ASAP.
!mark raffle, y'alls. All y'alls.
I'll give you a countdown here. We got 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. So we are closing that one. Pick a winner. Cyrus McCracken. Congratulations.
Congrats.
So send me a note and I will get you your code. All right. And so now we're going to, we're going to reset and
another one.
Yep. We got one more code. So you can do, !raffle, and we'll give this one away, in a little bit here.
Okay.
Right.
So going back to, so yeah. And that if the lack of money was a downside, but also like maybe our outreach was bad, right? Maybe we didn't do the emails correctly, like that's very possible, or maybe the screenshots, or the gifs or gifs in this case, but maybe those just weren't sexy enough, so there's a lot that goes into it, and I know that people are busy. We actually heard back from one of them. We went back and forth a bit and it didn't pan out. But yeah, so like I totally understand that there's a lot of reasons why it wouldn't have worked out. But yeah, it's funny looking back. I'm sure that regret was had. So
well, we've all had that regret. I can sit back and tell you about all sorts of games over the years that have gone off to make millions of in dollars, that
millions of monies
we didn't, or in my days as an agent anyway, we didn't take advantage of, and we lost out on all that revenue. But I'll also tell you, And over the years, this has not changed, and it doesn't matter what we send out. This always seems to be true. If we have a game that we know will appeal to 100 publishers and we send it to 100 publishers, 33% of them will come back and respond. We can take the same game, send it to those publishers again in 3 weeks, and 33% will respond. And 9 times out of 10, it's not the same 33%.
Yeah.
It's a just absolute insane, hard to predict, factor that goes into this. And so you can't necessarily, if you've got a game and you're pitching it, you can't get all wrapped up in who's responding and who isn't. One, that's why you follow up. But two, there's so many things that are going on, in a publisher's world, that sometimes things just slip through the cracks, or they look at it and they go, it doesn't look interesting, I'm just not going to respond. But you never get everything and feedback from everyone when you're doing this, but you do have the pleasure of sitting back at this point and going, you know what, I'm kind of glad it didn't work out. We could use this revenue along the way. All right, so let's jump back to localization. I put up a link to your Discord.
Mm-hmm.
There are I counted these the other night. There are 33 rooms for localizations that you all have in there, which is, it makes me nerd out a little bit, because back in my days as a publisher and as a developer, part of what I did was build the distribution networks. And I think the most widely game I ever had, we did 22 or 23 localizations on. And to sit and look and see 33 different, even if they're not far along, at least there is interest in doing 33 different languages from a self-publishing small developer. It just makes me smile, because that's one of those things that, and you've already seen it with China, it gives you that much opportunity to succeed. So how are you, and I know we touched on this earlier, but how do you manage it? Do you have spreadsheets? Are you using some software? How on earth do you manage as a small company 33 localizations?
Just a lot of work, to be honest. Whenever we put up whenever we release a new patch or a new update, and basically we do once a week in the main branch for sure, and then we actually have a beta branch. Now in our early access we have a beta branch, but and that gets almost daily updates every weekday, for the most part. And whenever we put out a new update, before we actually set it live on Steam, we'll post up any of the localization changes that get made to files that we have in the Discord. So we'll be like, oh, okay, this card was changed, and we'll note it, and we'll post up the JSONs that have everything, and then that way the localizers can have time to translate it before we actually push it out. And we manage everything through Git, so it kind of just makes it easy for us to see what's changed. But it's it's intense. I mean, we just get a lot of people, hey, Italian's done, or here's China's update, and then we get it and throw it in and get it in on the next update. And it's just, we just kind of manually do it.
Oh my God. I've done this, so I know how much work that is on top of the coding, and taking time to talk to folks like us, and everything else that goes into creating a game and doing it. And so that's amazing, and I definitely tip my hat to you on having that forethought and having that planning, because a lot of people they don't think about it. The standard rule that we've always had, and I've seen proven over and over and over again, is you can generate 40% additional revenue for your game if you localize it. Now obviously in y'all's case you've blown right through that, but that's typical when you do intelligent localizations. You do them well, and you do them on a timely matter. So yeah, that is super cool.
Yeah, and part of it is just our outlook is, if there's desire for it, why not? Like, yeah, a little bit more, but that's not a big deal. Like, I think some people wanted to even localize in Esperanto, the made-up language.
Thank you for the
And
sub.
and we were like, sure, go for it. Like, we'll put it in. Like, if people want it, we can do it. So, I think they're still working on that one.
So,
That's awesome.
when can we expect the Klingon version?
Yeah, well, if someone wants to make it.
Game dev company subscribe to tier 1 2 months in a row. Thank you, man.
Thanks, Bjorn.
Appreciate it.
So, and to everyone else out there, because I know we do have new viewers today, hit follow and follow us, because we do this. This is the type of show that we do. We are here to help, developers and small companies in the industry learn these things, before you have to go out there and learn it by falling flat on your face, in the industry. So, go back, look at our videos. We've got all kinds of cool stuff. We've got, playlists on YouTube, and, if you've got questions for us or for Anthony in particular today, ask them in chat, because that's what we want to do. They've had a lot of success, and so we want everybody to learn from it in some way, shape, or form. So, all right, so let's talk about the game itself. This is where I'm going to take advantage of my platform.
Yep.
Give me the noob strategy. Should I be keeping a tight deck that I keep getting, good cards in? Should I, have a larger deck? What are you seeing as, the designer and as the reviewer of the metrics? How can I get better at this game?
Okay, so it's not so much about that was beautifully done.
Everybody wants a big deck for sure.
Like the big thing is, in terms of deck size, you don't want to think about it as how big should my deck be. It's you can go like to an extreme with it, but when you're choosing to add a card, skipping is good, and that's a big thing. But you shouldn't skip just because. So what I mean by that is, you want to skip if the cards that you'd be adding to your deck aren't actually improving your chance of like actually winning or beating a specific encounter. So
that's not what I wanted to do.
Yeah. So bigger decks can dilute the chance of drawing good cards. So you don't want to add something to your deck that's not actually going to help you. But if there is something in there that's going to help you with some aspect, you do want to add it. And I think actually like a big piece of advice is, a streamer put this pretty well one time, is don't think in terms of archetypes necessarily. So don't be like, oh, I'm building a poison deck, I'm just going to add every poison card. You want to add cards to your deck regardless of if they're in the archetype that you think you are, but to deal with problems. So like if you see that you're going to fight that needs a lot of scaling, add a scaling card to your deck, even if it's not part of what you think your strategy is, but because you need an answer for the problem that you see ahead. Things like that. Or, add some block or damage mitigation if you can see that your deck has no way to do that. Don't just take like the sweet poison or strength card, poison and strength deck if you've already like really good on that and you don't need it. So that's the big thing. You want to be trying to address problems that you have in the moment.
So what you're saying is one of the things that I should do is actually scroll up and see what boss I'm fighting at the end of the act.
That's very important. So for example,
I've never done that.
so wow. Yeah, that definitely makes it harder for yourself. And the other big thing I can say is just, like taking time. Big thing. So like I try to still watch various streamers just to get like, because it's a good way of actually like watching people play. Back when we did playtesting, we went to events a lot, just like watching people play. It's a great way to learn a lot, and streamers are a good resource for that too. But you'll see even like really talented streamers, they go like really quickly. They're gonna start taking more damage when they don't need to, using more often. So just like actually thinking about what you're gonna do before you just start playing a card. Big thing, like maybe plan out your turn a little bit. things like that. Doing just those steps will help.
So you touched on something right there that I wanted to talk about, and I had completely forgot to talk about. Speed runs. You have, on top of everything else that you've embraced, you've really embraced the speed running community. So what is the current speed test, speed run record?
It's like sub 5 minutes.
What?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's like so that's actually something I can't. So I can the game like on Ascension 15, but I cannot speedrun the game. So I am madly impressed by it, and I love seeing the videos when they get posted of new records and stuff. Like, it just blows me away. And yeah, we have embraced it because, as a player, like, you always want to think from a player perspective too. As a player, I always find it very, very cool when I watch games get speedrun in an interesting way. So, like, even games I don't give two shits about, right? It's like I watched a while back, I watched like Spyro the Dragon speedrun. I'm not like interested in Spyro the Dragon, right? I remember it from my childhood, but it was really cool watching all the various little tricks and things and just enjoying the speedrun. And so it's a way for players to engage and enjoy with your game. And why not embrace it? By embracing it, you're putting it out to more eyeballs, right? Like when a big world record was done, various people wrote articles about it. They posted up videos of the game that goes out to more potential players who see this crazy shit happening and, wow, I got to take a look at this. By like, my kind of ethos is, embrace your players as much as you can, and like that's only going to help you. So.
Well, all right. So to a point, because again, this brings up that's one of the themes that I'm hearing over and over. You are so screwed, Indy. By the way,
dude, did you see that he just did 5 times 6 damage? I'm like, I wanted to flip off the screen so bad.
But, one of the things that I keep hearing from you is, we embrace this from gamers. We embrace the community localization and the speed running and, the, I don't know, beta test, the early access, all this. Have you found a point yet where you're like, okay, I think we might have embraced too much?
Not yet. It could happen. I know. Couldn't. I mean, by far, the thing about it is just that it takes a lot of time, and but it's fun when you're working on something that you've just like poured your life into, kind of. It's just I find it rewarding, and then Casey and I are both alcoholics in that sense, so it works out. But it's, we'll see.
I'm screwed.
we knew that.
This is nice. See, I actually really like. Great, it just makes me happy.
You broke up there, Anthony. What was it? You really like what?
Oh, I like it when I watch players.
I'm dead.
It's great.
I'm not dead.
Yeah, you are. Yes. He's like, is he? Yeah, he's dead.
I could have added it, but I would. I mean, what's the difference from 8 damage and 6 damage when I'm almost that dead?
You needed more poison. That's what you needed.
I'll try again tomorrow. It says.
You've got hundreds of relics. Who comes up with these? Where do you get the ideas for the cards and all of these relics? Because I've been playing this game for weeks, and I still find new relics that come up. So
how many relics are there?
A lot. Over 100. There's like 130 or something like that. I don't know the exact number right now because it fluctuates. Yeah, it was a lot. Yeah, so for both cards and relic, and events and monsters, Casey and I both come up with designs, and how it works is we kind of we'll brainstorm a bunch of designs, we'll throw them at each other, and then just be like, nah, those are shitty. This one's interesting. We could try that. And that's like how we come up with initial designs. And then we'll think about it more once we have some good stuff. or things we think might be interesting to test out, and then like eventually we'll just like implement it and put it in the beta branch and see how it works out. And that's kind of how we've done everything at the get-go.
So somebody had a question earlier, and I can't remember who it was, but are there any plans, or have you thought about a pet class?
The problem is screen real estate. So what I mean by that is, if you imagined me summoning little like dudes on the ground, like little skeletons. I know people talk about like a necromancer class. Where would they go, right? Because sometimes the enemies get really close to you. There's a lot of enemies. So that's why actually the defect kind of actually like about it. Your orbs are essentially little summons that you do stuff with. So I'm not saying that maybe we couldn't figure out like an active pet class in the future, but that will not be the fourth for sure. We have, I guess we have thought about it, but there are problems, right? So.
But that's
There's
actually,
issues.
one of my. I like pet classes when I'm playing RPGs. I'm waiting for that drain life, class or ability as well. So I can cheat on my health a little bit and suck it from my, whoever I'm fighting. I'm just looking to see what other questions that I had. So if you're out there in the world and you have a question and we haven't hit it, it's usually because I missed it in chat. Pop it in again. We'll do another round of that. Let's see what else. I'm thinking.
What is he?
So what can you tell us about, what's next? Where's the game going to go from here? How far from version 1.0 do you feel that you all are?
I'd like to. We'd like to be 1.0 this year for sure. Maybe like early fall, maybe late summer.
It's almost early fall. You know that, right, Anthony?
I know. so we'll see. But what I mean by 1.0 is back when we first launched in early access, released like a roadmap, and the roadmap contained a bunch of things, and we've almost finished everything on that roadmap except for a few things. That's like actually some of the stuff we're working on now. So like the last couple patches had less in them because we've just been working on some of this stuff that I can't really talk too much about, but one of which is like a proper ending for the game, I would say. So we're working on that now, and we're doing a lot of work on that. So but once we reach 1.0 done, we're still going to be pushing out updates and things, maybe not as often, and we're going to go back and like work on more characters, things like that. I mean, the good thing about this game is it's easily expandable.
Yeah.
Like just releasing a new character gives so much new playtime and space, and you have all kinds of ideas. I mean, we have documents just filled with ideas. So it's just finding the time and prioritize.
So have you done on the roadmap, have you done, is that public? I mean, is that,
It's public, yeah. We posted, I don't have the link on hand, but it was like posted to, if you Google Slay the Spire map, it will probably come.
So that's always something that I'm interested about, just from how long I've done this as well. And the mentality that used to exist in the industry was, for God's sakes, do not tell the people what's coming.
It has backfired in but nothing like major. So an example of this would be we said in our roadmap that, and then that ended up being like we thought. We ended up coming up with a cool design for it. We thought Ascension was that, like, this is like the way to do it the best in our game, and people really liked the Ascension system. But then people were like, well, that's, and we were like, oh, we don't know what we'll actually call it. And then it ended up being no one interpreted that as it. In fact, everyone thought that they would just be an endless mode, and then we were like, oh, so we have to make an endless, even though we don't think an endless mode is like very optimal game, like a lot of people want it, and so we made it, and like it exists, and it's like fun, but endless mode is like I think you do like maybe once or twice and done with it. And that I always knew that was the case, which is why something more like Ascension is more.
Well, it's hard enough to get to the end of the Spire.
Yeah.
Much less worry about, what you're going to do afterwards. So what percentage, when you're looking at your big box of metrics, what percentage of games started actually make it to the end of the Spire?
It's varied over time and updates, and as our player base has gotten better. Right now, for like a generic, and it varies by. For example, for like a generic Iron player, they win the game about 16% of the time.
Jeez.
This game is not easy.
No,
I mean,
it's intended to be hard, but but people games. So yeah.
I don't know if it was everybody, but you were breaking up really bad there.
Sorry,
it might just be me.
So but what's interesting, I love are winning 100% of their games. So so like it's very interesting because the skill disparity in the player base is really high.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've now hit that tipping point where you are becoming, mass market. So I would believe it would stand to reason that, yes, you have your players that have been playing for months and months and months and are really good, and they know what they need to do, and they plan everything ahead. But then you also have people like me that just came in, a month ago, and we're still learning. And I don't think I'm to a 16% win rate yet by any means. I've won once, and it was on a daily where I pretty much had an immortal defect, the best I could figure. So, it's
that was an accident.
Dailies,
Oops, I just won.
The dailies are generally can be very degenerate.
So, all right, so someone asked, is there any plan for a sorting mechanism in your hand? Group them by type, cost, etc.
In your hand?
Well, actually, this is in deck, so it's probably when you go to the, look at
it's been a requested feature. It's not something we're acting upon right now. It may or may not be acted upon in the future. I can't say for sure. It's certainly not our current priority. I would say that.
And so Gary asked, why does a robot need juice?
Everyone needs
it's magical
juice, dude.
Juice, clearly. Just Oh, how does the defect need juice? Well, maybe just pours the juice on it.
It's like
and,
it's lubricant. It's like oil.
Yeah.
You got to have it in there. Are you going to Gamescom?
I don't think so. Actually, we will be at PAX West, but I don't believe we'll be at Gamescom.
I'm not going to Gamescom either. It's okay.
We actually get constantly. So we get constantly asked if we're going to be at all manner of events, and there's just like a ton of events. It's ridiculous.
Yes.
And I'm like, I am working on this game. I don't have time to do that. So it's kind of interesting. That's
another theme that we've discussed, in the past on the show. Is if you wanted to, you could be at a show every weekend. It's almost like comic book, summertime.
And I actually don't know how much value you actually get on a lot of those shows. Like, I don't know, if you do like ROI on a lot of these shows, like, yeah, going to some is good, but like, I don't know. I don't think actually the ROI is positive on a lot of people going to the events that they're going to. But that might be a controversial opinion. But yeah.
No, there very much is an ROI, and there's each show has its own theme. If you're a developer going and looking for a publisher, PAX West is not your best choice. PAX West is very much there are publishers there, and there are acquisition folks for publishers there, but it's mainly for consumers. And so we've talked about like Pocket Gamer Connects and Casual Connect. Those are more business oriented. So there very much is an ROI, and it's also are you targeting the right show for what you need at a given time. And that's I mean, I have gone through, I know we've kept you for well over the hour that we have, generally planned on this. So, are there any other knowledge that you want to partake to everybody? And while you're thinking that through, last call for the raffle, hit the raffle for our second code on the game.
I think the biggest thing that I said, or maybe I just touched on it, was like you should really, when you're thinking about the idea for your game, you should think about it in the context, if you want to be like, if you're caring about it commercially, obviously that doesn't matter if you're just trying to be like an art project, but if you're trying to reach as many people as possible, you have to think of it in the context of how people play games these days, and it's through Twitch and YouTube. I mean, or the equivalent. And especially as an indie, I think it's, and like our marketing budget was $0. So, but we reached out, we sent out free keys to people, and that's all we did, and that's how it worked. And if you're making a game that like a Twitch streamer is they'll beat it in 2 hours, you're not gonna convert that many people, even if they play it. Like, you need a replayable experience, and I think, like, not every game needs to be. Those are gonna be the ones that make it easier on yourself. So.
So did you use, when you were doing your key outreach, how did you approach that? I mean,
we used,
you mentioned that you were looking for other people that played like Hearthstone. Did you use Keymailer, or what? How did you go about doing that?
Yeah, we used Keymailer. Okay, so I guess our marketing budget $100 for Keymailer.
What's how much like on Keymailer?
$100 or whatever it is to get the month of Keymailer, where you can like look at
where you're featured.
Yeah. No, we didn't do the featured actually. We did the thing and analyze, like, you can type in like Hearthstone and pop up like people that stream Hearthstone, and you can like cross-reference different games. So like I would be like, okay, who's played Hearthstone and FT, and then send all those people above a certain threshold keys, stuff like that. And it costs like $100 for like a month, but you only need it for like a month because one targeted month at around launch time is sufficient, I think. And then maybe not. I mean, but you could always go another month. But yeah, basically that was all we did, was we used emailer. I also like manually sent out keys to some people. Like I sent a couple emails with keys to a couple streamers that I watched. I think one of them ended up playing the game.
I got a key.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, and that we did, and that then it kind of just ballooned from there. But people, like, streamers are looking for content, like, if you think about it from their perspective, they're looking for new games to play, especially ones they think are going to do well.
Yeah, they're looking for the next big thing.
Yeah, and not even that, just something that will resonate with their viewers. And so you want to make it, one, streamers will want to pick up and play your game, and then two, you want to be something that can convert from that. So if you're a game that just watching it is the experience, basically, there's a lot of games that are like that. There's nothing wrong. But like if I watch a streamer play like a narrative game, I'm basically experiencing that game, and yes, that's they're gonna have a harder time as a result. But a roguelike it converts very well in that way. So things like that matter a lot. So.
And you just hit on your elevator pitch for the game. Assuming you were at a show and you were looking for a publisher, it's Hearthstone meets FTL.
Yeah.
That's an absolute great analogy in there. But yeah, I know my son, would sit and watch Breath of the Wild videos, for hours on YouTube, and I'm like, I couldn't explain to him that, he's just basically ruining the game for himself. He didn't care, but it was, you do have a tougher time when you have something that's a narrative. You could be seen as costing the developer sales because they're experiencing the game without there. So Gamer Strike, I mean not Gamer Strike, Gamer Husband says, who did the art for the game?
So Casey did the character art, because he also does art stuff, and then we also reached out to some freelancers to do the card and the background art, things like that. They did a great job with it.
Yeah.
So it's basically me and Casey were the coordinators, and we reached out to for other art and audio.
And another thing with the artwork with this, like if you go pixel art, or if you go like trying to make the top of the line 3D graphics, this art's going to hold up. In 10 years from now, people will look at this game and say, "Oh, this looks pretty." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some of the newer technology just will not hold up for 5 years.
So yeah, and I guess we could talk about. So we thought about art because some people don't like the art game, and that's fine. But it's different. So, and that's important because it stands out. I don't think you should. I shouldn't say that. But making a pixel game is a good way to not, right? Like, it's unless your pixel art is gorgeous, you have a tough time ahead of yourself. So, thinking about ways to stand out with matter, and our art's just kind of weird. Is how I would describe it to people. And like one of the things we thought about when we were thinking of the classes in my original design document, it was warrior, wizard, rogue. Those would be the 3 colors. And then we looked like on Steam Spy at various game covers that just had generic like D&D style warrior, wizard, rogue. Couldn't differentiate them from each other.
Yeah.
And we're like, well, let's make our classes a bit weirder. Silent, like, does not look like a traditional. She looks weird, and that weirdness helps a lot. I don't know.
No, I mean, I had never actually thought of it, but yeah, it's hard to make your art stand out when you do, pixel art, because a lot of pixel art looks the same. It doesn't necessarily mean it is the same, but it's easy to sit down and look at it and have a tough time differentiating, between everything. Whereas, no, your characters aren't, and they're not. The characters aren't necessarily easy to classify at first before you start playing them as well. Because you didn't name it. Here's a rogue. Here's a hunter. Here's a paladin. Here's whatever you want to call it. You have to play through a couple of times and unlock some of the later on cards for that class before you start getting a real feel for this is how that class plays.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, so raffle, we're going to give away the other the other key, so close that one. Pick a winner.
Gamer, you're the winner.
Yeah, we should do another. Let's roll that again. What do you think? Congratulations, Gamer Husband. You were here for the entire show and you won a key. So
he has never ever won anything from me ever.
Well, that's because you rigged yours.
Rigged. Let's see. I got to transform a card. This one.
And this is, and so this adds like the random onto random. Indy just gave away one of his really nice cards for a common card.
I know. I didn't realize that it would like change the card. I thought it was going to buff it, and I just buffed that card too. So I'm.
And now next time around. So, all right. Anthony, thank you so much. We really appreciate this. This is awesome. We had a good time. Hope you did.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun.
And then
it gave me a good reprieve from working for a bit.
Well, that's what this show does for us too. It's just,
like right after this, I'm gonna have to start getting to work. So
I have a company to run, but twice a week I sit down and do this because it's fun. It's and we get to meet a lot of awesome people.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Keep us posted on everything. If there's any way that we as our community of users can ever help out, of course, calling us. And with that,
yeah, join our Discord. Did you post a link to the Discord there?
Join our Discord. Follow us. If you subscribe, you get all these awesome I love indie game emotes
Yeah, you
as
get
well.
do. That one right there.
And
Yeah,
let's
yeah,
look.
yeah.
Find us somebody to raid, Andy. You're the raid leader.
Okay. Let's see here. Twitch.tv. Are we looking at game dev?
Sure.
Sure. Oh, let's raid Outstar. She used to work at GOG. Outstar is awesome. So here we go. And what we do is we are going to say, so here we go. Raid. Oh, can I do it? There we go. Say IGB raid. Bam. And then we can do our little emote there. Outstar's
Thanks
awesome.
for the follow, everyone.
Yeah, thank you guys. She used to work for Good Old Games.
Nice.
Then
Thanks
she went
again,
full-time
Anthony.
streamer.
I hope you will come back and hang out with us from time to time.
It's fun.
To take a break from the real work too.
Yeah. Bye, everybody. Here we go.